Hi there, I am the Reverend Danny Crosby, a Unitarian minister serving congregations in Altrincham and in Urmston in the northwest of England. And I offer this devotion as a balm for the heart, for the mind, for the spirit and for the soul. And it's titled Groundhog Day, a perfect allegory of the spiritual journey. So here we stand at the threshold of another year. We have passed through the cycle of life one more time. Much is as it was and some things have changed. Mostly though, it's very much as it was, as it will always be. This is the journey that is life. The truth is that we don't actually go anywhere. We just move around the circle of life. That said, we get the greatest gift of all. We get life. We get to journey on, experiencing life in all its beauty and sometimes life's horror. We get to live the spiritual journey too, which of course is not a journey of distance, but of experience, dare I say a journey of depth. As good old Wendell Berry so beautifully put it, and the world cannot be discovered by a journey of miles, no matter how long, but only by a spiritual journey, a journey of 1 inch, very arduous and humbling and joyful, by which we arrive at the ground at our feet and learn to be at home. This of course is the mythos that the great stories all seem to tell. Just think of Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. After the great adventure, she learned to be at home in Kansas. She needed the adventure in order to truly understand the treasure that she already possessed at home. She had to go on the journey of change and then to return home with treasure to share. Now, no doubt we've been repeating some of the similar rituals and practices these last few days as we have once again celebrated Christmas. Much of which will have been the same, but some things will have been somehow different. Maybe they've been experienced differently. Einstein famously said that insanity is repeating the same behaviour and expecting a different result. And there's truth, of course, in this wisdom, but I don't think it's the whole truth. For actually, in some ways, this is what the spiritual life, the life of faith, is actually about. It is the repetition of the same activity over and over again, and during that repetition of the same activity, change occurs, sometimes unexpectedly, but it occurs in the same mundane thing that we repeat day after day after day. So yes, Einstein is right. It is the definition of insanity, but it's also the definition of hope. That someday things will change, and somehow, sometimes they do. So there's wisdom and there's truth and there's untruth in it, like there is in all things that we say and do. There is a shadow to everything, and there is a light side too. I spend much of my life wandering around Altrincham, bumping into people and passing other people in the street, often seeing the same people in the same places and often having almost identical conversations. This is the beautiful gift of the ordinary, actually, for sometimes in that same repetition over and over again, gold is revealed. It happened today in the conversation on the dog stall in Altrincham. Now, some might think this same repetition is dull, but it's not. Some say, yes, this is Groundhog Day, and they see that as a negative thing, but actually Groundhog Day is the beauty of life. It is not in one little bit negative. I watched the film Groundhog Day the other day. It's one of my favourites, actually. It's set in the deepest dark of winter. I'm actually speaking of it a little bit early, actually, because Groundhog Day is not actually officially until the 2nd of February. Not that it's something that we mark in Britain, actually. Here, depending on our spiritual tradition, on that date we may well mark Candlemas in bulk or St. Bridget's Day. Groundhog Day began as a pagan festival. It falls in the dead of winter, flanked equally on either side by the winter solstice and the spring equinox. According to folklore, if the groundhog sees his shadow on this day, there will be 6 more weeks of winter of snow. So the hope is that he does not see his shadow and that winter will soon be over. But it's not the legend of Groundhog Day that really interests me. That's not the lesson I really want to talk about. It's more the film itself that bears the name Groundhog Day. One of my favourite films of all time. It may well be one of the most spiritual films ever made. That might sound shocking to you. It sounds like quite a bold statement to make about what is, on the surface at least, just another Hollywood romantic comedy. It's even got the classic casts. But Groundhog Day is a tale of hope, of the possibility of transformation, that by somehow repeating the same day over and over again, somehow in this process, change occurs. Different results do in fact come. It tells the story of the self-centered weatherman named Phil. At the beginning of the film, he is sent on his annual excursion to Puxatawney, Pennsylvania, to record the thrilling moment when Phil, the groundhog, makes his annual winter trek into sunlight in search of the shadowy predictor for the coming weeks. Phil the weatherman hates the fact that he has to be there and treats everyone he meets in this hick town with disdain. The film crew can't get out of town. They get stuck there due to the terrible weather as it takes a turn for the worst. So they have to spend another night in this hick town. Phil isn't happy, but he goes to bed. The next morning he awakens to the very same song he heard the morning before, I Got You Babe by Sonny and Cher. And he is to awaken to this same day every morning as Groundhog Day is repeated and repeated again and again and again and again for days, for weeks, for months, maybe it's for years. Every day is the 2nd of February. Every day is the very same day. Every day he is offered the opportunity to experience that very same Groundhog Day over and over and over again, running into the same people, having the same encounters. And yet within these very same limitations, he is offered infinite possibilities. There is so much offered in these same encounters. Infinite choices are offered to him. Where he can eat, how he can respond to each encounter, who he can hurt and who he can help. He is offered the opportunity to grow and the opportunity to change every single day. He is offered the opportunity to become the man he wants to be every single day. He can be the bad guy or the good guy, the funny guy, the happy guy, the free guy, the trapped guy, the suicidal guy. He is offered the chance to change, which he begins to do. As he learns from his same mistakes, he repeats over and over again. He learns that he cannot control all that is going on around him and that happiness can only be found by truly living in what is actually there in front of him, in that sacred moment. And his inspiration, of course, is his producer, Rita, played by the lovely Andie MacDowell. She is the opposite of Phil. She is good-hearted, she is at peace with herself, and Phil falls in love with who Rita is. He awakens to the longing to be a person worthy of her love, and he begins to allow himself to be that person each day. Each day is repeated, and in the end, he gets very subtly different results over time. Now, isn't this one of the universal messages found within the mythos of the great faiths? That love can transform even the most self-centered of hearts, that we can all aspire to be the best that we can be, that hope can be found in total despair, and that you do not need to seek some special place. It is found in the ordinary, everyday things of life. So could it be that this Hollywood romantic comedy is the most spiritual film ever made? Well, Harold Ramis, the film's co-writer and director, he said that religious leaders and writers continually contacted him over the years, claiming that Groundhog Day is an allegory of their religious tradition. The key messages: Buddhists have claimed that it illustrates the ritual of samsara, the continuing cycle of rebirth. Phil the weatherman is seen as the bodhisattva who keeps on being sent back into the world in order to save the world. He never seems to reach enlightenment and has to keep on going through the daily trials in order to help other people. Jewish observers have noted that Phil keeps on being sent back into the world to perform mitzvahs, good deeds. The story is not really about individual salvation of Phil, but more about perfecting the whole world. So others have claimed Christian and pagan interpretations. It has been suggested that the groundhog symbolises rebirth and the hope of renewal at Easter or springtime. It's worth remembering that the 2nd of February is Imbolc and Candlemas, key festivals in both of these two traditions. And the story is also a classic redemption tale, very much like A Christmas Carol, which I've also seen again several times. Phil the weatherman is just another example of Mr. Scrooge. In fact, Bill Murray himself has played a modern day version of Mr. Scrooge in the film Scrooged, another favourite. Groundhog Day is a favourite film of mine. If you haven't seen it, I heartily recommend it to you, for it will warm you through on a cold winter's night. It's a film about hope. It's a film about the possibility of change and transformation, that by repeating the same ordinary activities, we can grow and we can change. Now, some call this insanity, that by repeating the same thing we expect change, but I prefer to define it actually as hope. Hope in the possibility of change. Now that might be insanity, but I'm a man, it's a beautiful insanity. I'm going to end with the final words that Phil said, that Bill Murray's character Phil says just on the final day as he's signing off his broadcast. Words of hope of what might be, words uttered not knowing that the next morning everything would have changed. For finally Groundhog Day had ended, and it was actually February the 3rd. But he did not know this when he uttered these words of hope, not expectation or even anticipation, but of hope, of what might be. Phil said, when Chekhov saw the long winter, it was a winter bleak and dark and bereft of hope. And yet we know winter's only one more step in the cycle. And standing among the people of Puxatawny, basking in the warmth of their hearts and their hearths, I couldn't imagine a better fate than a long and lustrous winter. Could you, any of us? I'm going to end today's reflection with a few words of blessing. You know we need to bless more. We can all bless, and we do so by giving our whole hearts to life. So let's begin today. Let's give our whole hearts to life. Let's return to life once more, in good health and in good humour, filled with a new sense of belonging. Let's keep on turning toward love and turning toward light, taking the next step in faith and in hope and love. Come, let us connect with all that is, all that has been and all that will ever be. Let's go out into our world filled with life, filled with joy and filled with love. And may we carry this love with us. And may we do so in all that we feel, in all that we think, in all that we say, in all that we do. Amen and blessed be.